about what was going on, but the policeman at the gate didn't seem to have any weapons on them. And so the policeman in a bright yellow jacket got pushed into Parliament Square by this man. They seemed to be having some kind of disagreement, and that was when the policeman in the yellow jacket got pushed to the floor, and the attacker just stood over him, lunging at him. I can't say how many times. 3-4 times. It was very difficult to watch. I then started looking to see if anyone was trying to help him. That was when we saw people running out of the palace, obviously armed police. The attacker took a few steps to his right, closer to the Visitors Cafe, if people know it. There were words exchanged there, and that was when it looked like a very small firearm, to be honest, shot 2 to 3 times, very loudly, and the attacker crumpled. And then the scene really descended into mayhem. People were running towards the attack policeman and the attacker. And that's when I was actually, just after the attack took place, I was taking my phone out of my pocket to start trying to record some of it. And that's how I caught the aftermath rather than the actual shooting itself.
OK, Patrick, thank you very much. There were very vivid images. What looked like one of the police officers throwing some emergency equipment through, I noted. We'll look at those again very shortly. These are the latest live images. Thank you, Patrick, and we hope that things conclude safely in Parliament this afternoon. Of course, that you and all of your colleagues are able to get out to safety too. Ambulances still making their way across Westminster Bridge as our picture pulls out now to take in the whole of that stretch of the Thames overlooking the Palace of Westminster, in which there must be very many people in shock this afternoon. Inside there is our political correspondent, Libby Wiener. Libby, what can you tell us about what you've experienced and what is happening there now?
Well, the palace is still in lockdown. I'm in the press gallery, and we were here when the incident unfolded. What first alerted us to the fact that something very serious was going on was a loud bang, which we now believe was that car crashing into the railings on one side of New Palace Yard. A short time later, there were 2-3 shots fired. When I got to this room, which overlooks New Palace Yard, I could already see 2 people being given assistance by paramedics. They looked very seriously injured. The paramedics were assisting them with CPR, and that went on for perhaps 25 minutes. An air ambulance landed in Parliament Square, and 2 ambulances came into New Palace Yard. One of them then took one of the injured people away. We believe it was the assailant. Now, the seriousness of this incident, if it could have got worse, was the very fact that the Prime Minister, at 12 o'clock in the House of Commons, she was being escorted to her car when the incident unfolded. She was bundled into the car. The car made an attempt to move towards carriage gates to leave New Palace Yard, but then hastily aborted that manoeuvre and moved back to its original position. At the same time, there was a division bell going on, which meant that MPs were moving towards the chamber to vote. So many of them were walking down one side of New Palace Yard when this incident happened. Shortly afterwards, the sitting of the House of Commons was suspended. And as I said, we are still in lockdown. Officials here have been saying this is still an ongoing incident. They are still very concerned about the security of people in the building and in the immediate vicinity.
Libby, for the moment, thank you very much indeed for that. We're just getting reaction to these events unfolding in Westminster now coming in. We've just heard from the US President Donald Trump has been speaking, and he has described the terror attack at Westminster as big news as world leaders reacted with shock to the incident. Very many of them are, of course, gathering in America on a conference on terrorism and fighting the so-called Islamic State. That is the first word out of America from the US President. He was speaking apparently after having an update on the situation, and the US State Department has said it was ready to assist the UK authorities in any way. According to our colleagues at NBC, Mr. Trump told reporters, "I was just getting an update on London. some big news having to do with London has just happened, and the State Department spokesman said, "We're following the concerning situation outside the UK Parliament and stand ready to assist in whatever way possible." We have also heard too from the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, who's extended his sympathies to those who've been worst affected by that. The Prime Minister back in Downing Street after having been taken out very swiftly by her security detail, moved her away from Westminster as fast as possible. We can cross back now to the Commons, in fact just outside, along from the Commons at Millbank, and our correspondent Paul Brand, who's been watching events unfold. Paul, what's the latest you have for us?
So I'm just on the north side of the river here outside Parliament. Police vehicles, ambulances still coming along this road this afternoon to the scene just at the top of this road here next to Westminster Bridge, where it looks as if ambulance crews from my angle here are still treating some patients. I was on my way into Westminster this afternoon. I arrived at the tube station just as this incident was happening. I came out of the tube exit to see MPs huddled around one another, shouting, confused, panicked, asking one another, what should we do, what should we do? I spoke to one of those MPs who said, Paul, get away from Parliament. There's some kind of an incident going on. A car has been driven in to the railings of Parliament, and then a couple of MPs ran into the office at the tube station to tell them to shut the tube down, saying there had been a terrorist incident. When I came out of the steps here at Westminster Tube Station, I could see the car directly opposite me up against those railings, and paramedics at that point were already treating someone under the front of that car, and then police just started shouting to everyone to get back, get back. Armed police were running across the road. All of the tourists, this is a huge tourist spot as we've been discussing, all of them were being pushed back and back with cordons being put up, and all of us asking not to film anything while the incident was going on. As I moved back towards Westminster Bridge here, I could see another casualty there on the other side of the bridge, just up against the railings. Paramedics again doing their best to treat that person, and then after that the police pushed us further down the embankment here to where we are now, where we're being asked to stay for the time being, where, as you can see, they're still clearly trying to get a hold of what's gone on here.
Paul, for the moment, thank you very much indeed for that. It is now around 4:30, just coming up to 4:30 if you're just joining us. The news that is unfolding this afternoon, a terrorist incident at the Palace of Westminster and in Westminster itself this afternoon. One woman has died and several have been injured in an attack immediately outside the Houses of Parliament. A police officer was stabbed and his alleged assailant shot by armed officers. Let's go now to the live pictures, and alongside me in the studio is our correspondent Chris Shipp, who can just bring us up to details with the latest on this. And this is the view looking back onto the core of this incident as it appears. Chris.
Yes, this is looking, by the look of it, from Millbank down towards Whitehall. I think that's Whitehall. You can see just at the top of the screen there, the cenotaph, of course. There we are, going off towards Downing Street. So to recap, Julie, this happened at 2:40 p.m. This afternoon, when there were reports of a loud bang very close to Parliament, right underneath Big Ben. There were screams and shouting. We think after that, a police officer was stabbed. That was followed by some gunshots, and it appears that the alleged attacker was shot dead by police. Prior to that bang happening, it appears that the car involved, the one that we've been looking at, crashed into the railings.
And these are pictures from earlier, we should stress. This is not live picture. This is taken earlier.
So that car, we believe, prior to crashing into those railings there, had potentially mounted the pavement, perhaps all the way across Westminster Bridge. We don't know, but I mean, we've seen a number of incidents, a number of paramedics huddled around injured people right the way across Westminster Bridge, from the side that St Thomas's Hospital and the County Hall is on, right the way across to where Big Ben is. And that's where we believe the one confirmed fatality, a woman who has been tragically killed. We believe that happened on the bridge.
Moment, thank you, Chris. Alongside the bridge itself, on the St Thomas's Hospital side of the bridge, our security editor Rohit Katru, who'd spoken to some eyewitnesses a little earlier. Rohit, who else have you spoken to? In fact, you have somebody alongside you now.
Yes, Julie, this is Rob Lyon, who was down in London with work. He's from Warwickshire, and you saw some of the aftermath of what happened, Rob. Just take us all through the events that you saw.
Sure. Well, I'd just done an interview at Millbank for the project I was here in London. I was walking from Millbank. We were staying at the Park Plaza Hotel behind you. We just passed a group of Chinese tourists taking a photograph of the Big Ben, and then suddenly I heard a crunch of a metal against a curb. It was the wheel of the car hitting the curb. A colleague I was with said, "Rob, get out of the way." I saw people being hit. I jumped from the pavement into the road. Tragically, I could see people actually were passing me that had been hit, and then I could just see the car continuing in that direction, and they're just leaving devastation behind it.
People were passing you.
Someone that was hit, certainly a gentleman. He was airborne, if you like.
He was flung into the air by the impact of...
Yeah, and there was one lady, tragically, had gone under the bus that was on the road, so she didn't look like she had much chance.
And you must have been in absolute panic at this stage, and I'd imagine the people around you too.
Just shocked, to be honest. I don't think panic. It slowed down. It was like being in a Hollywood movie, if you like, as opposed to real life. I didn't quite know what had happened. I thought maybe somebody had a heart attack at the wheel and hit the accelerator. I didn't for a second think it was someone was intentionally, driving a car at me.
And just tell me what went through your mind in those terrifying moments that everyone here is imagining. What if they were there? What would they have thought? I mean, what went through your mind at that time, Rob?
First, I wanted to check that the two colleagues I was with were okay. I saw Steve and James were okay. I wanted to check that there was a lady that was in front of me that was clearly badly injured. I wanted to help her, but somebody was already with her. And to be honest, I was just in shock. I didn't go into a protection mode of other people. I just looked around me at what was happening and couldn't quite believe it, to be honest.
Yeah. And now, all this time on, you still can't believe it. Obviously, I can see from you that you're
slightly
shaking.
in shock, to be honest. Yeah. My first thought was to get straight home, see my wife and my children. But in light of, I've looked at the news on my phone and I can see it maybe has terrorist implications. I now think I'm going to stay in London and do what I was here to do, rather than just go home. I think I'm not going to be disrupted by these people. We should step up and do what I was here to do.
This is solidarity. This is standing
sort
firm.
of. Well, the campaign I was here to raise awareness was about carbon monoxide alarm awareness. And if I went home, one person maybe wouldn't buy an alarm and protect their family because of me now. So I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to raise awareness for carbon monoxide. That's what I came here to do, and I'm not going to let them stop me.
Rob, I think so many people are going to find that such an admirable response to this all. You've had a chance to talk to your wife, to your family.
Briefly.
And if you don't mind, how did that conversation go?
I didn't last long before I could feel my voice wobbling. I just said I'm okay. I'll speak to you soon. I will call them again in a moment. I did say I'm coming straight home, but as more I think about it, maybe I think I stay in London to do what I was here to do. So.
Well, look, best of luck with it.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time on ITV News. Rob was actually down here, as he says, trying to promote a carbon monoxide detection campaign, and he's heading back to that. I think, Julie, actually, the cordon's being moved here, and so I think technically we might have to hand back to the studio for the moment.
OK, Rohit, thank you very much indeed. And it was clear just from the movement behind you that the police were perhaps moving people along. Just before we cross back to Whitehall to speak to Emma Murphy, a couple of updates for you. We've heard from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who has said this afternoon there has been a serious incident near to Parliament Square, which is being treated as a terrorist attack until the police know otherwise. I have spoken to the Acting Commissioner. The Metropolitan Police Service is dealing with the incident and an urgent investigation is underway. My thoughts are with those affected and their families. Sadiq Khan goes on to say, I would like to express my thanks to the police and emergency services who work so hard to keep us safe and show tremendous bravery in exceptionally difficult circumstances. So that is then the latest from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. And just another detail which has emerged in the last few moments from a spokesman for the Port of London Authority, which looks after the safety on the River Thames. He has been quoted as saying that a female member of the public was recovered from the water near Westminster Bridge. She is alive but undergoing urgent medical treatment on a nearby pier. We believe she fell from the bridge. He said the river has been closed from Vauxhall to Embankment as part of the security response. So bit by bit, the picture is being filled out of what happened on the bridge. It appears, from what we've learned so far, that the vehicle that we've seen crashed on the side of the Palace of Westminster end of the bridge may have ploughed along the bridge, hitting pedestrians. It may be that this woman, to whom the Port of a London authority have been referring, may have been pushed off the bridge. She may have been trying to leap to her safety. That is not yet clear. But bit by bit, we are learning of the truly awful events on Westminster Bridge this afternoon. Let's cross now to Whitehall, to our correspondent Emma Murphy, who I believe, Emma, you have a security expert with you.
Indeed I do. I'm joined at this moment by Tahir Abbas. You are a security expert with RUSI based here in London. We just need to move back a little bit if we could. Stick with us though. We'll keep broadcasting as these police cars come through. If you just wait one moment, we'll rejoin Tahir Abbas. So Tahir, this has been the situation that has caused great worry now and anxiety for a long time. As we've seen terror attacks in other cities, it appears that it has finally come to London. Your assessment at this point, I realise it's very early on.
It's still very early to have any conclusive idea as to what is going on. I think the important thing is to have all the information we can possibly obtain at this stage in order to come up with any kind of hypothesis as to what's been happening today. And it's a severe incident. There have been many casualties, and there are going to be implications as a result, indeed.
What's striking is that this has happened at the Houses of Parliament, at the centre of British political life, one of the most highly guarded buildings, and yet actually what has happened did not require anybody to breach security. They took their chances on a bridge with the public and then just outside the Houses of Parliament. Looking at this with your expertise of previous attacks, does this lead you to believe this could be a so-called Islamic State related incident?
It's too early to speculate. It would be somewhat disingenuous if we made any claims about the ownership of this particular event. However, it does have the hallmarks of the kinds of incidences we've been seeing in other parts of Western Europe, with all the implications in terms of the effect, the fear, the alarm that it creates, precisely what terrorists want.
Looking on social media and on the internet, there's already some chatter, as it's described on the Islamic State-related sites, about the incident that's gone on here in London this afternoon. Explain to me how the police and indeed the intelligence services will move forward now. Obviously, there'll be the frontline response dealing with the casualties, securing the area as we see here. But actually, in offices, there's a lot of work going on now, isn't there?
Yes, immediately when this incident happened today, the work started. And in that, there will be all sorts of measures taken. A lot of these activities have been rehearsed many times. I mean, this is not a completely new situation in that respect. So there are methods, procedures in place to try and think through the implications and what needs to be done. But most importantly, right now, we need all the information we can to be able to come up with a clear picture of exactly what happened and what might have caused it.
And in terms of the intelligence services, what kind of organisations or individuals will they be trying to seek information from, other than just the eyewitnesses that we have around us here?
I mean, there'll be footage available from CCTV, there'll be cameras all over Westminster. This information will be screened closely. There will be intelligence officers and security personnel who will be talking to each other at this precise moment, trying to piece together all the elements of what's happened today, trying to come up with a clear picture.
We are, of course, exactly a year on from the attacks in Brussels. They were being marked just a couple of hours before we saw the incident here in London. How closely will those investigating this be studying incidents like Brussels?
Well, there are very good synergies between the different security intelligence services across Europe. We share information, we talk to each other regularly. We know a lot of what we do in these circumstances. So it is the case that this is exactly a year since the Brussels attack, which was a horrific event, as is this. And so there'll be certainly a great deal of symbolism, political capital gained for the terrorists, whoever they might be.
Tahir Abbas from RUSI, thank you for your time. You'll have probably seen more of the vehicles going in there. Obviously, there is a huge forensic operation to get underway over on the bridge and outside the Parliament, but that will have to wait until they are sure that the area is secure. This cordon hasn't been moved for probably about 10 minutes now, so they obviously feel that this immediate area is safe. However, it's the area further back down, closer to